The Shinsengumi, once solid, now wavered. What would happen to them? What would happen to the Fury Corps? Men were forced to watch as their friends became the undead monsters known as Furies. Was it any wonder that they found themselves conflicted, or that tempers began to rise? Several days later, the order was given to begin the imperial restoration. The emperor would be restored to power, and his court would once again rule the nation. The position of shogun would be abolished, and Kyoto's military and judiciary commissioner positions would be eliminated. All that the Shinsengumi had fought for and believed in was falling to pieces. Here we go again. Wonder if that was the end of that chapter, actually. It was! We were so close! Oh, final chapter already for Sano! Oh no. I'm already supporting my boy, he got injured! No! Who dealt the killing blow, or the injury blow? Was it Kyo? Was it Kazuma? December 1867. Actually, before we begin into December 1867, are we in bloom with you? We are in full bloom! Alright. As the order to begin imperial restoration came, Satsuma and Choshu troops started occupying the city of Kyoto. At the same time, members and affiliates of the Tokugawa shogunate were being removed from the imperial palace, and eventually Kyoto altogether. They, as expected, did not take this lightly. In response, the shogunate's military forces were beginning to march from Edo to Kyoto. As tensions rose from the approaching shogunate armies, the Satsuma and Choshu were preparing their own forces for a hostile confrontation. The situation was growing increasingly frenzied. As the shogunate scrambled to call upon their remaining allies, the Shinsengumi received an order to come to the Fushimi magistrate. Having all of their men and armaments gathered in, the Fushimi magistrate enabled the shogunate to act in the event of an emergency. So, off we went. On one such day, during the commotion... Yes? Oh. Hey! Bad news, guys! The chief's been attacked! Bad news was delivered to the Fushimi magistrate. There had been no witnesses, and the culprit escaped unseen. Their motives could only be guessed.
What the hell? Who the hell could have shot him? Let's go! Anyone who's free, come with me!
Nagakura got a crew of warriors together, and they all headed towards the location where Kondo was shot. My little red Corvette! That's the achievement I just got! I wouldn't call Harada little. That's amazing, though. I wasn't expecting to laugh at when Kondo got shot. Oh, sorry, Kondo. Kondo was shot on the right shoulder. The bullet pierced clean through him, shattering the bone, which required more treatment than I could have given him at the compounds. The Satsuma Choshu troops, who'd gathered in Kyoto, began fortifying their base within the imperial palace. It seemed to be a warning call to all, an assertive declaration that they believed themselves to be true imperial troops. In response, shogunate forces began assembling their powers through the Toba Channel in Kyoto. The Fushimi magistrate as well were preparing for a war that could have come at any moment. Man, we're just like fading in and out of locations. A few days had passed since Kondo was shot, and the mood in the magistrate's office was tense. The warriors scrambled, spending day after day to identify who may have been the culprit.
I can't forgive those bastards! Let's throw them out of Kyoto!
I'd never seen the men so angry, although it was certainly understandable. Every man in the Shinsengumi looked up to Kondo, and it was hard not to like him. Still, I felt uncomfortable. Oh, Harada.
Hey, Chizuru. Looks like it's not going to be a quiet New Year's, huh?
He was trying to act cheerful, but even I could see he was feeling down.
So, I heard you went to check up on Kondo, yeah? How's he doing? Yamazaki told me his right shoulder is all messed up.
Well, his wound isn't life-threatening, but the scar it left is going to be pretty deep. He may contract a high fever. From what I'd heard, Hijikata and Yamazaki are currently discussing what their next plan of action will be in the near future.
Gotcha. Geez, what bad luck for Kondo. Especially now with everything going on.
I know. For the leader of a group of men like the Shinsengumi, Kondo was exceptionally kind. It hardly seemed fair that someone like that should be hurt so badly. I understood how the rest of the soldiers felt. Did they catch the shooter? Was it the Choshu?
Well, Shinpachi and his boys went out as soon as we heard that Kondo had been shot. They went over the place where it happened with a fine-tooth comb, but they couldn't find anything. No witnesses either. I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah. For our leader to get shot just as we're about to go to war?
No, that's not what I meant. I mean, I'm worried about that too, of course, but I just feel like something's up. Over here on our side. This just doesn't feel right.
What is it then?
What are we fighting for, exactly? The Choshi want to get revenge for the people who were killed at Ikeda Inn and during the Hamaguri Rebellion. But I've been thinking lately, what are we fighting for?
Well, aren't we all fighting for the shogunate?
Well, that's not wrong, I guess. I'm pretty sure Kondo's still trying to protect the shogunate. But I don't think this whole thing started just so we could fight the shogun's wars.
You mean the Shinsengumi? I hadn't thought of it before, but I knew almost nothing about who the captains had been before they came to Kyoto, or why they'd come.
I might have told you before, but I tried to kill myself once, you know. I was still a kid, but I got into an argument with the samurai. Even these days, I wouldn't say I've got a long fuse, but back then I was either fine or I was royally pissed off. He said something to me, and we kinda got into it. It ended with me opening up my stomach. I didn't die, though. That caused a lot of trouble. They pretty much kicked me out, and I came to Edo. That was when I met Kondo and Hijikata.
You got kicked out for not dying? Sheesh.
Back then, they were running this tiny dojo with barely enough students to get by.
Really? But they've killed so many Ronin. Okita especially was so good with the sword that it was hard to believe he was even human. That love for Soji continues. I would have thought a dojo full of such powerful warriors would have flourished.
There were a lot of other famous dojos in Edo, so why would anyone want to learn a style that makes you look like a farmer with a hoe? But even though they were barely making ends meet, they let my broke ass stay in their house. Doesn't get much more generous than that. Ever since we'd showed up to Kyoto, the shogunate started giving us some stipends.
A form of payment issued to those who serve as samurai under a feudal domain. The contents of the payment would include some or all of the following: land, rice, or currency. Nice. Rice.
So now we don't have to worry about money. I mean, when the day's over, our job was to protect the safety of the town, right? We can now be proud of what we do. I remember being real happy about that.
Harada. I could see where he was coming from. For example, during the Ikeda incident, if the Shinsengumi men weren't there, then Kyoto would have been under flames and claimed many, many lives. They really look after the citizens of Kyoto. It was clear to see how much pride they had for their duties and for each other.
Now we're vassals of the shogun, and that means we gotta fight on his side. I get it, but it's not hard to get bummed on that.
If I wasn't mistaken, Harada was probably talking about Heisuke, whom he'd really thought of as brother, becoming a fury, which must have hurt him. Official research performed on the water of life was mandated directly from the shogunate. I think Harada was wondering how long he could continue to support the shogunate despite feeling opposed to the actions of the shogunate. So much shogunate.
And after what's happened to Kondo, go out there and avenge him. But we've spent all this time protecting Kyoto. I don't want to turn it into a battlefield just so we can hash out who's better than who.
Harada. In his mind, there were no complicated rules regarding his relationship to the shogunate and imperial court. All he wanted was to be useful and for his friends to be happy. That was why he'd come to Kyoto in the first place, but now he found himself about to dive headfirst into a war that would tear apart the city he'd worked so hard to protect. What could I possibly say to him? He seemed to guess what I was thinking and gave me a wry smile.
Man, it's not really like me, though, to stress out and think about this kind of stuff. I think we should just kind of chill out about it.
Chill?
What's important now is that I can be proud of myself. I can walk in the light without guilt. I wonder how many other people in the Shinsengumi can say the same.
How could I answer that? That's pointless. Not that's pointless. It's hard to say. I think it's hard to say. I mean, sure, we all had more fun before all of this started, but right now our country's in a tough spot. Trying to live in the past isn't really going to help anyone. And I knew that I wasn't actually considered a member of the Shinsengumi. I'd never risked my life to keep Kyoto safe like they all had. Excuse me, you ran through the streets to inform Hijikata about the battle at Ikeda Inn. I think you qualify as trying to save Kyoto. It was only coincidence that had brought me to them, and I was only alive and safe because they had protected me. It's not pointless, hooray.
Sorry, I guess that wasn't really a fair question. Forget I said anything, okay? Shouldn't really be talking to women about war anyway.
I ain't no ordinary woman. What? No, don't say that. I assume this is probably supposed to be her, not Harada. True, I might not know very much about politics and war and all that stuff, but I'm always happy to listen. Maybe I can help that way. Oh, he's so much closer.
That's not what I mean, idiot.
He grinned and ruffled my hair with a single huge hand.
I'm just saying a girl like you shouldn't have to worry about stuff like this. The battlefield's no place for a woman. I mean, you're no warrior, and it's not like you joined us ready to die or anything anyway.
Harada's words seemed really curt, but in fact were quite kind and warm in person. Yeah. It was gruff, but there was kindness in it, but the sincerity of his tone still made me happy.
Shouldn't you be free by now?
Free?
Well, you were only staying here because you wanted to find your father, right? We needed Koto's help back then. He's not really that important to us anymore. Sanon's got the research covered. And to be honest, we don't have the time or the men to go looking for Koto these days.
Good point.
We kept you locked up because we were worried that you might leak information about the Shinsengumi. But I don't think there's a guy here who believes you'd do that now.
Harada. He was saying things that I'd been thinking to myself for some time, but I wasn't quite sure how to respond. In the beginning, I had wanted desperately to leave, that was true. But now, I fell in love with a little red Corvette.
Well, if you want to go, you just tell me, alright? I'll make sure you get to do what you want.
Oh! What the heck was that noise? Ah! He gave me a friendly smack on the back that I hadn't been expecting. It was quite powerful. At least it was on your back and not elsewhere. What was that?
Oh, sorry. I guess I hit you a little hard. Anyway, all I was saying is there's not really any reason for you to be stuck here forever.
Am I a girl or am I not? You're giving me conflicting messages here. Oh, well, thank you.
I'm gonna go check up on Kondo, then. I wouldn't be too worried, though. The guy's so tough they could probably shoot him with a cannon and he'd walk away afterwards.
Leave the Shinsengumi. I honestly hadn't even thought about it for a long time, but he was right. I wasn't one of them. I was an outsider. That's not what he's saying. There wasn't any reason for me to stay, but if I left, where would I go? We still had no idea where my father was, and as Sen and Cosma had told me, I was a demon. Could I really go back to my old life knowing that? On the other hand, Cosma was still after me. If I stayed, he'd be back eventually. If you leave, he'll be after you eventually. And that would mean trouble. What was I going to do? Go back to your home and let him just kidnap you a lot easier. It wasn't long before Kondo and Okita were both sent to Osaka Castle to recover. Kondo's gunshot wound was healing slowly, and he needed rest and frequent treatment. Okita was sent away in hopes that a change might help him recover from his illness, which had been discovered to be severe tuberculosis. I caught a glimpse of him as he left, and his face was frighteningly pale. Soji! As I watched him leave, I felt my heart sink. It made for a bleak start to the new year. Aw, Soji. Still love that boy. We were busy preparing for war. We couldn't do much to celebrate the coming of the new year. I was cleaning in the common room. The big powwow.
Oh, Yukimura. Are you still awake at this hour?
Oh, Sanan. Did you have any business here? If you're going to use this room, I'll leave.
Oh, I don't mind. Rather, I think it's better that you are here for it.
Huh? His words perplexed me, so I felt a little anxious. Just then. The most prominent Shinsengumi captains began filing into the common room. What were they about to discuss? My anxiety was starting to grow stronger.
Seems like everyone's here. So, what do you want from us? There's no telling when war will finally erupt, and for us to gather here right now, don't tell me. It is exactly as you are thinking. I asked you all to gather here today with the intention of giving something to you.
In his hands was an object wrapped in a fine cloth that he slowly unwrapped before all of us. As I saw what was inside of his hands, I gasped and clasped my hands over my mouth.
The water of life. Exactly. As captains of the Shinsengumi, we all took on the risks of researching this serum. As such, it is necessary for us to take responsibility for this experiment. Especially if, like Kondo, any one of you becomes injured or maimed to the point you cannot fight. Or in the worst case, there is a possibility that your life is gravely threatened. I know for certain that this serum will be of use to you. Sanan, are you trying to experiment on us too now? I'm just saying, under our current circumstances, we cannot afford to lose any more captains. Screw that! I don't want to depend on that crap just to survive.
Nagakura was infuriated and stormed off. And no candles were blown out that time.
Perhaps we can call it a good luck charm. Personally, I pray that it shall never come to any of us drinking this serum.
Inoue spoke softly as his fingers pinched the vial and held it close to his eyes.
I will borrow this. Well, I don't think I'll ever use it, but I'll hold on to it, just in case, of course.
Both Saito and Harada grabbed a vial, and they slipped it into their respective pockets.
Hijikata.
Up until now, Hijikata had crossed his arms and silently observed Sanan's speech.
We gotta take responsibility, huh? Well, you're onto something.
His eyes looked troubled, but he reached for the serum and slipped it into his pocket as well.
Well, I believe that does it for tonight. I just pray that my courtesy will not go to waste.
After Sanan finished, the captains all left the room, and Sanan turned towards me. Man, the sentences are butchered this time around.
Yukimura, I am certain you are aware of this. But do not let word of tonight get out to any other warrior. Do I make myself clear?
Doi. Timidly, I nodded my head, and Sanan waited for a room? What kind of room? What could I do? The serum created by my father was now in the hands of the captains. I shuddered at the thought of them drinking it. I felt as if my heart was going to tear apart. Man, that whole scene was just butchered. Yee. Today is New Year's Eve, but the Fushimi magistrate was abuzz with panic and tension. War could erupt any day now. This seemed to put every warrior on edge as they eagerly awaited the order to march. Because of the tense uncertainty, I couldn't bring myself to sleep that night. And as Harada had told me, this was almost a self-invited sense of anxiety because I didn't necessarily even have to be with the Shinsengumi. Compound that with the fact that the demons could come for me at any moment, my mind had no chance of resting. I got out of my bed and I crept quietly to the common room to get some fresh air. What are we gonna find this time around? Oh, thank goodness, it's just you.
Yo, Chizuru, you're still up?
Oh, Harada, are you drinking right now?
I couldn't really sleep. What do you say, you want to have a drink with me? This is the best sake I got. Don't tell Shinpachi or Heisuke.
Sake? But how should I respond? Why can't we just drink? Yeah. Let's save. I know we're at full bloom, but I don't know. I'll pretend to drink and see what happens, I guess. How about I pretend to drink with you? That way we can still hang out. Is that okay? Okay, so if I said no, I just would leave. Alright, good enough for him, I guess.
Sure, thanks. That works.
More sake for you. Harada poured some sake into a small cup for me. That's plenty, I think. I placed the sake-filled cup on the floor and I took the bottle from Harada. I refilled his empty cup in return for his generosity. Oh, whoops. I'd poured too much and the sake reached the top.
Whoa, take it easy, that's good.
To prevent the sake spilling from the cup's sides, Harada sipped it quickly.
Thanks. Ah, so good.
I stared at Harada, and I thought I'd ask him a question that I'd always wondered. While you're intoxicated, maybe I can get some info. Does sake taste good?
Well, sake is delicious, but I'm not drinking it for the taste. I drink it because I like how it makes me feel. Alcohol gives people a chance to talk about stuff, or even vent out frustrations that we can't normally say in front of other people. So if you're gonna spill your heart out, then you might as well do it over a bottle of sake.
I see.
Yeah, I would guess it's probably the thing that brought me, Shinpachi, and Heisuke all together.
Harada casually sipped on his sake, smiling warmly, but then his tone became serious as he asked me a question.
So, any special reason why you can't sleep?
It seemed like Harada reached out to me earlier because he wanted to ask this, but I thought twice before telling my answer.
Contrary to my good looks, I'm great with secrets, and I would never share what's bothering you with other people. Or do you think that I take it the wrong way or something?
Oh, it's not like that at all. It's just,
Why don't you just say it? Sometimes talking with other people when you're worried makes it easier.
Harada's voice was so kind. Even just a light, even just a little. It made me feel like he'd lifted the burden in my heart. Is it okay for me to be here still? I left my mouth agape after I spoke.
What do you mean by that?
Well, since the fighting will break out soon, I was wondering if it was right for me to stay here. The demons could try to kidnap me too during the battle. Wouldn't I just be in the way here? Harada curled his lips into a wry smirk, and he nodded.
It probably would have been pretty cool for me to say we don't worry about you. But if I'm honest, trying to deal with both the demons and the Satsuma Choshu will be a pain in the ass.
Harada was always honest with me. He knew how conflicted I had felt, so he never seemed to feel the need to lie to me for my own sake.
There's nothing worse than a man who goes back on his word, especially when it comes to looking after a woman. I'd guess you're right about being safer from the demons if you're far away from here. But we're the ones who put you in house arrest in the first place, weren't we? So kicking you out when we're the ones who assume the responsibility of watching out for you would be irresponsible. I don't even want to admit that we're stretched so thin that protecting you is tough. Me, Hijikata, none of us want to say it.
I hung my head low from his words. So is the Shinsengumi really asking you that much of you out there? My question seemed to make him wince, and it was one I thought about for a while. Then Harada looked up at the ceiling.
Don't know about that one.
I could sense him wavering. I'm sure he was just trying to have faith in both Hijikata and Kondo, both of whom he trusted to lead for so long. But now Heisuke has joined the Fury Corps. So many things were testing his faith, causing him to doubt the institution and people that had given him strength for so long.
Well, regardless, it doesn't change the fact that we'll protect you from the demons. No matter what, taking a woman without her consent is something I'll never stand behind.
Thank you. You're a true gentleman.
This I knew for sure.
The doubt resting in Harada's eyes only moments before seemed to leave him. Instead, there was a bright fervor. It's just the sake. Looking at his determined expression gave me an unexpected sense of relief. Before I knew it, all of the anxiety keeping me awake had melted away, and I could sleep soundly in bed that night. He didn't even have the alcohol. Goodness gracious. And now it's January. Gotta be leading up to that final confrontation pretty soon. Oh. January 3rd, 1868.
Well, Happy New Year. I never thought we'd be welcoming it like this. You're telling me. We're probably not even gonna get any mochi. Those rebel bastards are just inhuman. I hope nothing happens until after we eat our 7-herb porridge, at least.
Rice porridge containing the 7 herbs of spring. Japanese parsley, shepherd's purse, Jersey cudweed, chickweed, kuni tabarako, turnip, and daikon radish. That's an interesting porridge.
No kidding.
Harada and Inoue were still talking and warming themselves near the hibachi when Yamazaki ran in. Oh dear.
Inoue, Harada, something's happened.
Hey Yamazaki, what's up?
They just opened fire on shogunate troops.
What? Are you sure? So it's finally started, huh?
The shogunate army started to move into Kyoto, and the Satsuma opened fire on them. Now there are skirmishes breaking out all over the city. Yukimura, I don't see Saito. Where is he?
He's outside on watch. Ah! A sudden roaring explosion shook the magistrate's office, followed by another, and another. The constant bombardment left my ears ringing.
This way, Chizuru!
Harada grabbed my arms and drew me closer to him in order to shield me. Aww. Thank you, Harada. I could feel Harada's breath softly tickle me, and it made my heart race. Now's not the time, Chizuru. I know he may not have meant to do so, but still. Oh, he meant it. At that moment, Saito returned.
Saito, what are the Satsuma doing out there?
They have cannons set up near Ryun Temple. That's where this attack is coming from. This is it.
As Saito spoke, I could feel the air in the room tighten. It was suddenly full of faces much more grim than I had seen in a long time.
Get into formation! We're going out! At last! I'm all ready to go! Those Satsuma bastards are finally gonna get what's coming to them!
I looked over at Harada, who was already pulling on his own uniform and headguard. The Satsuma were armed with guns, right? Are you really gonna be okay if they're using those kinds of weapons?
Well, thing about guns is, if you're a little ways away, then it's probably not gonna hit you. As long as you don't get hit anywhere important, you're good to go, too.
Really? His cocksureness gave me some relief, but what was this bad feeling I couldn't shake?
Hey, don't give me that look. It's like you're expecting us to all die out there.
But...
We'll be fine. You know who we are, yeah? Stop worrying so much. Just don't go out of the building, okay? Wait right here.
We're moving out. If you're suited up, follow me. With the shuffling and clanking of armor moving, the men followed Hijikata out of the building, leaving only a few men to guard the magistrate. Ah! Every time I heard the sound of cannon fire, my heart leapt into my throat, and I cringed at every scream, wondering frantically if it had come from anyone I knew. As the minutes stretched into hours, I prayed desperately as my mind invented horrible deaths for all my friends. Chizuru, no! Then at last, as twilight began to fall on Kyoto, they returned. You're back!
Hey, Chizuru. We're back.
They were dirty and despondent now, a stark contrast to the excitement and vigor on display when they'd marched out. Everywhere I looked, I saw uniforms smudged with dirt, dust, and blood. What happened? Did anyone get hurt?
No, we're all right. Shinpachi's division wasn't so lucky, though. They were in the front. Most of his men are dead.
Oh no. Nagakura had seen his men die. Men who had drunk with him, sparred with him, and patrolled the streets of Kyoto with him. What could I possibly say to him?
Don't worry. They were ready for this. It just doesn't really seem fair, though. There's no way we can charge it. What the hell? We managed to survive, but I don't know if we'll be so lucky the next time we see him. Nagakura.
They were all doing their best to be cheerful, but it was painfully obvious that it was just an act. It was obvious from the start that this war was far different than the likes of Ikeda or the Hamaguri Rebellion. To think that the once invincible Shinsengumi could be so easily defeated. Outside, the bombardment continued unabated.